We're actually going to move on to something which I've been tracking very closely, and those are the vaccines which are now available. We've read and heard a lot about Covishield and Covaxin, but now it appears that the Sputnik vaccine, which is a Russian vaccine, has done extremely well and has been rated at having an efficacy of 91.6%. Now in India, and that's been peer reviewed, in India it's going to be manufactured very soon at Dr. Reddy's Laboratories. I'm very happy to have with us Deepak Sapra, the CEO API and Pharmaceutical Services at Dr. Reddy's. Thanks very much, Mr. Sapra, for being with us. I hope I didn't scare you off with that previous discussion. This is going to be about hope and positivity. Firstly, how soon before you start manufacturing in India, and in what quantity?
So, Vishnu, thank you for having me on the show. We believe that we should be able to apply for an emergency use authorization in India in the month of March. We believe that the vaccine should be available in India from March, April. As far as the quantities are concerned, we have an agreement with RDIF, our partners in Russia, for 125 million people doses. That translates to 250 million vaccines, which will be sufficient for 12.5 crore people or 125 million people in India. This we expect to accomplish over the period of the next 12 months.
You've also got phase 3 trials now in India of this vaccine, right? At what stage are you, and when will Dr. Reddy's, which is part of the trial process, be in a position to go to the government with the documentation and say, look, this is what we have for you, let's now progress? When?
Sure. So I think let's understand the trials a little better. The trials for Sputnik V in the world are being conducted on about 36,000 people.
Right.
Out of this 36,000 people, about 33,000 plus people are in Russia. In addition to the Russian trial, there's a bridging study being conducted in some other countries like India and the UAE. In India, we are conducting a bridging study, which is a phase 2 and 3 clinical trial on 1,600 patients. This study, the phase 2 was completed in December. The phase 3 is currently underway and is expected to be completed in the month of February. The phase 2 data showed excellent safety and immunogenicity results. We are expecting the phase 3 to get completed in February, after which we'll make a submission to the Drug Controller General of India, which is likely to happen in the month of March.
What I found interesting about this drug, two things. Firstly, it can be transported in a powder form in temperatures between 2 and 8 degrees. And secondly, it can be used in combination with other vaccines. Could you tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure. So this vaccine has two forms. There is something called a liquid form and a lyophilized form. The liquid form originally is on the -18 storage condition. In addition to the -18 storage condition, there is also a version which is currently under stability testing at a 2 to 8 degrees. Once we have this 2 to 8 degree stability data available, we will also be able to get the vaccine transported across the world at 2 to 8 degrees.
And the efficacy would remain the same?
Yes, the efficacy is 91.6% as part of the interim results which have come in from the Lancet study. Now, I'll talk a little bit more about this efficacy. This 91.6% is for the entire population, the more than 20,000 people on whom this study, the interim data is available. Now, this cuts across age groups, this cuts across comorbidity conditions. So, for example, in the age group of 60 plus, this vaccine has demonstrated an efficacy of 91.8%. This shows that there is consistency in the efficacy across age groups and across conditions of comorbidity, which gives us a tremendous amount of hope and confidence that this vaccine will be a vaccine which will be suitable for the entire adult population of the world.
Finally, cost. What's it going to cost?
So we have not yet determined the cost. However, it's important to mention that we are working very closely with the government in India and also with our partners in the private sector to determine what should be the right price point at which this will be available. Needless to say, our goal is going to be ensuring access for as large a segment of the population as possible. Accessibility and affordability is going to be the mantra, and I'm sure it will compare favorably with regards to some of the other vaccine pricing that we have seen in other parts of the world.
So a final question to you, slightly unfair, but would you say if there are government regulations in place and you're allowed to sell it to private players, then maybe after July sometime, this drug would be available? Would that be fair to say, depending on what the government allows?
Sure. So our objective is to operate in consultation with the government and as per the guidelines of the government. As of now, the government, we are waiting for the government guidelines on allowing this vaccine for the private sector. We will operate as per that. However, once the government allows us to take this vaccine to the private sector, we would definitely take it to the private sector, and we have a very, very large and extensive reach throughout the country, and we will be able to make it accessible to a larger number of people around India once it opens up for the private sector as well, in addition to the government.
Mr. Sapra, best news of the day. Thank you so much for joining us and sharing all of those details. It's a fascinating vaccine which has now been proven to work quite well. Out of time on Left, Right and Centre. Sanket Upadhyay comes up in the next few minutes. Stay tuned.